All right, everyone, the morning after the night before, this is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way. Three happy faces. Ryan, you're not doing enough smiling for me. Joe is. I certainly am. There we go. There we go. Yeah, what a night, guys. Celtic 5, Slovan Bratislava 1. 5-1 in the UEFA Champions League. Loads to talk about, loads to be positive about. I'll open with what I tweeted last night, what you actually brought up when you came on, Ryan. It's time to get excited about this Celtic team because this is a properly good Celtic team that has the potential to be even better, a lot better than they are right now. It's so exciting. And so exciting that you've had about 4 hours sleep as well. So I'm definitely not going to play on that at all today.
Thank you. Yeah, just very, very excited. It's just pure adrenaline this morning, I would say, talking about Celtic at the moment. What a night. What an atmosphere. Just from before the game, walking to the stadium, you felt like there was the weight of expectation and you were like, can Celtic thrive under this or will they fall under it? Thankfully, it was the former and not the latter. The walk-on was incredible. The Champions League anthem, has it ever been that loud before? I'd like to check the decibel levels and compare them to other games because, my goodness, it was loud. It was deafening. After I'd finished recording it, I actually felt my right ear was going because of how loud it was in and around the stadium and the people next to me, obviously. Yeah, just a great night all in. 5-1, but I don't think 5 flatters Celtic at all. It could have and should have been a lot more, especially in the first half. They had chances, a multitude of massive chances. Looking forward to getting into that with the Stats Bomb report this morning / afternoon, whenever it comes out. But yeah, 3 points on the board, job done. And they've really, I completely agree with you that there's, I mean, if you're not already excited, which I have kind of been since pre-season with what this team could be, then last night was like the visual proof that Brendan Rodgers is really building something special at the club, not just domestically, but in Europe too.
Joe, I got a message from one of my pals this morning making a really interesting point. I thought that he said he was in the top of the world basically from last night, an incredible buzz, woke up feeling incredible, felt far better after last night than even the recent derby victory over Rangers. You guys are nodding your head. I'd be interested to know what people think in the comments. Like, I mean, that was a good feeling as well, but there's something about European football that just gives you a buzz that domestic stuff doesn't at the moment. And I agree. I feel incredible today after witnessing that.
Do you not think that's maybe like a kind of, it's a, I mean, you think about what the manager's been saying since the start of the season about wanting to make inroads in Europe, and we've spoken on this pod before. There's a general feeling about the focus being, the players and the manager said it, bread and butter stuff in the league, and that includes Rangers because it's obviously part of the domestic competition. But there's a real distinct shift in focus this year, and when you end up with a performance like last night, when everything comes together, even the preamble, which you touch upon there, Ryan, walking up to the stadium, seeing the white tent outside the stadium, which is only there for the European games, what the managers do, their post and pre-match. It's a lovely sunset last night. There was a massive full moon. Everything just came together, and you add in the atmosphere and you add in the performance. I mean, it's easy to gush about last night in terms of the expectation going in. It was a game that Celtic were expected to win, which is a really unusual situation. I was aware of the stat that Celtic hadn't won their opening game ever since competing in the Champions League. I hadn't quite realised that it was 18 years since they'd managed to score on the first day, which would be Man United in 2006.
Wow.
3-2 game down at Old Trafford. There's been draws, there's been 0-0 draws, but actually scoring in that opening game, 18 years, which is it's not an admirable stat at all. But I think last night for me, and for a number of Celtic fans, it was arguably the perfect performance. And I mean that with a negative slant on it as well, because it wasn't perfect, it was imperfect, but in doing so, it was the best start to the tournament because there was still mistakes there. There was still chances to score more, as you say, Ryan. There was still a goal where, okay, it's an individual mistake, but we switch off. I think if Celtic win 5, this sounds a really strange thing to say, but if Celtic win 5-0 last night and there's nothing that you can pick apart, you go in with an inflated confidence that probably isn't healthy for the rest of the tournament. So I think everything came together really well. I like it. I don't. 5-0 has been brilliant. I don't like seeing Celtic concede goals, but if they do, and you still score 5, exactly that at this level, no matter who you're playing, with the full respect to Slovan Bratislava, they weren't brilliant in large stretches of the game. They looked exhausted in the last 20 minutes, but it bodes so well. So I think that any Celtic fan that's waking up and feeling enthusiastic and feeling buoyant and knowing, as you say, there's more to come, it's a great feeling. And I do think that is, winning against Rangers so comprehensively recently is brilliant. But when there was so much expectation going into this game, when the focus seems to have shifted and we are talking in such positive terms the next day, it's brilliant.
How amazing was it with like all the backdrop of the Champions League, everything that goes with the Champions League, to see Celtic treating a team like they would Ross County. I thought that's what it was like last night. Listen, Bratislava are a far better team than Ross County. I still maintain they're better than anything we faced domestically. I know they struggled last night, but I think, how often have we played a team of that level, that kind of mid-European level? They're champions of their country, and we've struggled. Like, maybe not in the Champions League group stage necessarily, but imagine, remember how many times we've played teams like that in qualifiers for the Champions League, or in the Europa League group stage, or in the Conference League, Bodo Glimt. Now, to be fair, I think Bodo Glimt are probably a better team than Bratislava, but similar-ish levels. And we've struggled a lot of times. Copenhagen struggled a lot of times against these kind of teams. Last night, I just don't. We didn't allow Bratislava into that game at all. It was just, I just thought it was a brilliant performance, and it was the kind of night when records went. As you say, it was our first ever time we've won an opening Champions League match. It was our biggest ever win in the Champions League proper. It was the first time we've ever scored 5 goals in the Champions League proper. I think we've only scored 4 once before.
Was that Juventus? Was that? And that's the first time we were in the Champions League, obviously, since the rebrand in 2001. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and the whole Irish thing as well. I think it was the first Irish goal scorer in the UEFA Champions League in 13 years when Liam Scales scored, and obviously an hour or so later we had another one. So it was that kind of night. I just thought it was a breathtaking performance, and like, it just fills you with so much confidence for what's to come. Where do you want to start, Ryan?
Where do you start? There's about 5 or 6 areas that I think you could talk about with glowing terms. I think we need to talk about the man in the moment. You could actually say that about 5 or 6 players at the moment, to be honest with you. But I think it's best to start off with the record signing. My goodness, Arne Engels, breakout performance. Was talking about it yesterday. Was saying that he could potentially have a game that people would consider a breakout. £11 million. You knew it. You seen it even before the game with the walk on, or the Champions League anthem when he was listening. He was nodding to himself. That was a boy, a 21-year-old man, saying, I belong at this stage, I belong at this level, and it's time to show everybody why I cost the club £11 million, and I'm going to repay that. Just a perfect midfield performance. Everything about his game was good. He does the simple stuff really well. His pressing is brilliant. He's strong. He's quite quick. He is he's disciplined. He doesn't really give away a lot of fouls. He has integrated perfectly into this side. You know, Matt O'Reilly's a difficult player to replace with his goals, assists, and overall work rate. But he's done a pretty good job thus far. I'm not going to say that he's a better player than Matt O'Reilly, because I still think there's levels to come with Engels that should push him towards that target, and maybe even further than that player. But in terms of an opening 3 games to show what you can do, he's been pretty spotless, and he can take a penalty as well. That's very handy. Both the same way, both the exact same corner. He double bluffed the goalkeeper. I think the goalkeeper thought it was going to go the opposite way. He was like, "No, I'm just sticking to I'm sticking to what I know," and putting it in the goalkeeper's left-hand corner, the right-hand corner from where I was sitting. What a performance! And I feel like that's only the tip. We've got so much more to see from Arne Engels. I think he's just going to improve and improve. I really expect him to have a standout season. Some of the some of the tweets and forum posts already about this player are absolutely ridiculous. It's good because we can get excited about a player that you've spent a lot of money on, and he's justifying that price tag very early doors. I like the cut of his jib, basically.
Who would have thought when you spend money, proper money, on a player with a good pedigree, that it would actually work out and it would show on nights like last night. He's got real quality. I love the fact, underrated thing, the fact he strikes the ball. He hits the ball so hard.
Venom in those shots.
He thumps the ball, and he thumps it on target as well. He doesn't like balloon it over. He might occasionally, but if anything, it's too on target. A lot of the time it's straight to the goalkeeper, but I think he's going to score some screamers this season. The thing I love about him, Joe, he signed, it's his second start last night. He's taken our corners, he's taken our free kicks, he's taken our penalties, he's taken responsibility for all this. I rewatched the game earlier, or rewatched the first half, and you guys will remember there was like a corner we had early on in the game that I think it was Engels and Kuhn tried to take it short, and he kind of mucked it up, and it came off Kuhn, it went out for a throw, and it was a bit of a disappointment, a minor disappointment, but still. And then we got another corner a couple of minutes later, and I'm thinking, a young guy playing for Celtic, 60,000 expectation, Champions League night, you probably just thump it into the box, don't you? You don't take that chance again. He takes it short, he finds Greg Taylor at the edge of the box, Taylor crosses it in, and that's the one that Maida should score with a header. So I love that moment. He is so calm under pressure, and that's the kind of it's that kind of calmness and confidence you need at that level to stand out, and he epitomises it at the moment.
Yeah, and physical, clearly can throw himself about, can hold the ball up. Some comparisons when Luke McCowan comes in to players that have found their way to Celtic later in life, and Paul Hartley and Barry Robson were mentioned. Engels with that physicality in Europe, something those two players from a different era now were very good at in Europe, throwing themselves about, making themselves heard and their presence felt. Engels from start to finish was doing that, and that feeds into his willingness to take on the corners, to take on the set pieces, to be saying to the captain, no, I'll be taking this one, kind of thing. At 21 just turned, and as you say, Ryan, at the top of the conversation, wanting to announce himself, wanting to be here and knowing that this is a stage that he should be playing on. And he just seems to be taking it all in his stride, doesn't he? Even from his press conference saying, when he was asked about the price tag and being the record signing, and he seemed just to kind of say, that is what it is, as if it's nothing to do with me, that's a value that's placed on my head, kind of thing, and the proof is on the pitch. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to speak too soon, but I certainly felt like he's more than filled that void that Matt O'Reilly's left behind, and is offering something totally different, especially when Hitate's in there. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Hitate over the course of this conversation. A player who there was question marks from some areas. Should he start? Shouldn't he start? And I thought it was phenomenal last night. I thought he got himself involved. I thought not that he needs to prove any doubters wrong. I think he's well into his Celtic career now. But in a game like that, to manipulate space, to be coming short, to be looking for the overlap, the passing, the vision, everything that comes together, it was, I thought that he was excellent as well, alongside Engels, kind of complementing each other over the course of the night. So, yeah, it was Engels. Again, we've said this so many times about this team, about what Brendan Rodgers is doing this season, but Engels in particular, to think that there's still so much to come domestically, and of course on this big stage, it's hugely exciting.
And as Henrik McLarson's pointing out, he took a few sore ones last night. I can think of several really kind of crude challenges, I thought, on him last night, and he just takes it and kind of gets back up. But I also noticed, I think it might have been Vladimir Weiss who had a great game, I thought. He had a moment on Engels where he kicked out at him, didn't he? He kicked, because it was I was trying to think, he kicked out at him, and I was watching Engels after that, and Engels went kind of right into him after that, and I thought, good on you, because that is an experienced player there, and he's a 21-year-old, but he's getting stuck in. And as Max is pointing out, he can take a corner as well. Yeah. Delivery for that opening goal was brilliant. So yeah, so
it seemed to be a kind of collective around, certainly where I was sitting, we've scored from a corner. We've put a good ball into the box, and one of our big, strong, bustling defenders attacked it. Keeper's got a good hand on it, but couldn't. Some people around me were blaming the goalkeeper. I could have saved it, but I just think it was just so powerful, and that's because of the delivery. Scales doesn't really need to do that much. He gets himself in a position. He moves towards the ball. We score from a corner. Brilliant.
So many positives. Like Alistair Johnson, I thought was brilliant. Ryan, just everywhere.
Celtic have needed a player that gets involved in the gamesmanship and of the European game. I think he gets it. He left one on Vladimir Weiss shortly after Weiss had got that booking on Engels. So he's clearly there for his teammates. His teammates clearly adore him and what he brings on the pitch. But Celtic have needed a player that takes challenges like that in the box that leads to Celtic's third goal through the penalty spot. It's brave because he anticipates the challenge. He sees the Bratislava player maybe sleeping on the ball as he's trying to clear it. He's like, I can nip in here and take the challenge. I actually thought he got better after he got his booking in the first half because he was more controlled. He was thinking about his game a bit more. Him and Nicholas Kuhn have a special relationship down that right hand side. They're on the same wavelength, and you can see that they're having a lot of fun playing with each other in that team. After a disappointing, a really poor game from his standards. He's got high standards against Hearts, as usual, but against Hearts, he didn't meet those high standards. My goodness, he came out and then some. He was absolutely immense last night, but he wasn't the only one. I thought Liam Scales deserves his flowers. I mean, the start to his season has been nothing short of immense. I thought he outperformed Carter Vickers again last night. He was winning every single tackle that he was involved with, just was not allowing Bratislava to get through whatsoever. And then I think special praise has to go to the captain. My goodness. I mean, he is an absolute general in that midfield. He barks orders at his fellow professionals. He tells them where to go, but he leads by example. He is taken on that leadership role that Scott Brown left. But I think that, and this isn't to downplay Scott Brown's achievements because he was a good player for Celtic. I think Callum McGregor's a better player for Celtic, but he's also got those leadership skills. He was a joy to watch last night, and long may that continue. He's 31. He's in the prime of his career. Scotland will be ruin the fact that he's retired from international duty because what an asset he is to have. But Scotland's loss is Celtic's gain here, and he looks so fresh. Every game he's played thus far this season, I think he's been at least an 8 out of 10. But I gave him a 9 last night because I thought he was utterly sublime. But he wasn't the only one that was sublime. But he sets the standard, and you can see that in the team. He is the perfect leader for this Brendan Rodgers Celtic.
Yeah, Joe, any of that you want to pick up on? Scales is getting the plaudits.
Yeah, and again, that's palpable. Again, I can only speak to where I am in the stadium, but a lot of people who have been on his case since he came into the team last year and just saying that he deserves his flowers right enough. He's been almost faultless. I can't think of any moment at last night's game where he wasn't cool and calm and
one wee moment maybe in the first half where he kind of stepped out, and I think it's the one that he actually ends up deflecting the ball over the bar. It was a kind of minimal thing, but that was the only thing.
And again, that feeds into what I was saying at the start about it being a for me exactly what I wanted from a Celtic performance, and that they were dominant, they won, they played brilliantly, but there was still room for improvement. I'd forgotten about that one, and again that kind of accentuates or epitomises, typifies at this level, no matter who you're playing. I mean, one thing which I love about the situation that we're in now is this new format with the Champions League. Like, even though it was never aggregate in the group stages, there was always that sense of, well, it'll be a different game over there. And I know that analysis is done in every single opponent in the modern game, and there is still a bit of the recency of, well, this player played this way or this player showed this side of their game and it was going to be different in a home crowd and all that. We don't need to worry about Bratislava again. Do you know what I mean? That game is done now. It's parked. Dortmund's a focus in the Champions League. Celtic have been dominant and there's nothing to think about now. It's just that Celtic are second in the table somehow behind Bayern Munich. I just think it's and Callum McGregor is he's such an important figure, and that's again the kind of general chat around me was who would you give man of the match to? It was Scales in the stadium, wasn't it? And UEFA, so I'm with these. And I mean, he deserved it, but whenever I'm unsure, and it's a great position to be in, it's Callum McGregor. You know, that way it's like Engels was brilliant, Scales was brilliant. You know, the subs, which we'll go on to as well, were all brilliant and really played their part. But when I'm unsure, it's Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor's just consistently good. He's when the team is good, Callum McGregor's good. And that's reflected in the fact that was his first Player of the Month award. You couldn't believe that was his first just a few days ago, because he's always good. He's one of his faults almost is that he's consistently good and almost overlooked. But no, yeah, it's, like you said at the start, Hamish, it's difficult to wipe the smile off your face.
Yeah, because I think like last night on its own, right, if we'd have just won 5-1 in the middle of a half decent run, we'd all be feeling amazing. But I think it's more than that. It's like a feeling of like this journey the team are on. And like for me, like under the previous manager, that journey was very, very obvious. Right from the start, we knew we were on a journey. We were trying to get better and better and better. And it was a great ride. This journey's kind of come a bit out of nowhere to me, or for me. Like when you look at last season and how, go back a year ago, and the performances we were seeing from the team and compare it to what we're seeing now, like I honestly, I wasn't sure we had a team that could be this good in us, even at the start of this year. I thought it would kind of be a case of, obviously want to try and win the league. We'll win the league, get into the Champions League, and you know, we'll see what happens. We were decent last year, didn't get the results, but it feels to me like that, like this is a proper Celtic team that, forget last night against, you know, one of the weaker teams in the tournament. It feels to me like this is a team that when we go up against, you know, better teams, we'll be able to get results. I could be proven wrong with that. Our next two games, the away matches, are incredibly tough, and we've got to remember that. Champions League runners-up, Europa League winners. It doesn't get much tougher than that away from home. But I'm already, you know, fancying seeing this team play at that level away to Dortmund, because I genuinely think we'll get joy in that match. I'm not saying we'll get a result, because as I say, they're a top team, but I think we'll get joy in that match. And you know, we're going for these games as well. You know, we're going to attack these teams, but in a more structured way maybe than the previous manager. Great games coming up: Dortmund, Atalanta, Leipzig at Celtic Park is going to be incredible. And then you've got some games after that look, you know, winnable based off last night, and we probably need 7 points, 7 points more from 7 games. Like, it seems very doable now based on last night. I got some comments, various things. Chilpel saying Casper's face at the Champions League anthem. He was buzzing. He was delighted, wasn't he? Have you seen the stuff about Peter Schmeichel?
Absolutely.
I saw that on Twitter. Yeah, he's saying the atmosphere was questionable or something.
Flagging off Man City.
He says he's going to the Green Wall in Dortmund.
Do you think that'll actually happen? Because CBS are like quite into stuff like that. Remember they had Jamie Carragher in the Yellow Wall last season, steaming, doing his punditry work. I wonder if they will actually end up having Peter Schmeichel in the Celtic end in Dortmund. That would be amazing.
He said that he is definitely going to be at the game, so I think that would be too good an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah.
I don't think you could hide Peter Schmeichel in the Celtic crowd, given the size of him. But it's always great, a great ambassador for the. You know, there's a few goalkeepers or former goalkeepers now that are great ambassadors to Celtic. You only need to listen to Joe Hart's comments on Match of the Day.
Oh,
you know,
brilliant.
the BBC now have Match of the Day highlights for the Champions League, which is a good pickup for them. What an ambassador he is for Celtic. All of a sudden, he could not sing Brendan Rodgers' praises enough. He was talking about individual players, so he's given a wider audience, you know, the know-how of these players, like Nicholas Kuhn. He's calling them by their first name, calling, you know, Kyogo, Maeda, Hatate, what they do. So he's bringing Celtic to a wider audience, which is great to see. And it just goes to show you how worthwhile it was for Celtic to have him as a goalkeeper for 3 seasons. I think he would have also helped in the decision of Kasper Schmeichel going to Celtic, because I know that they're really close friends in football. They have been for the best part of 20 years now. So yeah, it's all really working out well. You know, good ambassadors off the pitch. They've got great players on the pitch. Everybody just seems proper excited at the moment with everything to do with Celtic. Everybody's really enjoying every piece of media that comes out, every picture. people are responding well to that. I can't think of a time. There has been good times, such as Ange Postecoglou's second season, the Invincible treble. Has there ever been a feeling of this sort of unity, of this unified joy of watching this team at the moment? I can't really think of a time where it's been as strong as this so early on in the season, but with the promise that it's going to improve as well. I was talking to Tony last night on the post-match briefing. I think Celtic are going to put 8 or 9 past a team in the Scottish League once they're fully flying. They've just got danger all over the pitch, and they look like if they're in the mood, then they're gonna pace the team, to be honest. And that really bodes well for the rest of the season. Not every game can work out like that, but I just feel that there seems to be this unity between the supporters, people who cover the club, the manager, the players, and everyone around. This is a really special time to be watching Celtic at the moment, and long may it continue.
Their hunger to get the ball back when they've not got it is ridiculous. And it's something Joe Hart picked out on that BBC highlights show. Several examples of players just running backwards to win the ball back. It was just incredible. Chilpil again, so happy for Liam Scales. He keeps getting better under Rodgers. Shuggy goals. Rodgers' stamp was all over that game last night. Individual players in the team itself. What a brilliant man manager. He deserves huge credit, Joe, given the job that he's doing at the moment.
Yeah. And the crowd singing his name towards the end of the game, which we've not heard that much since he came back in last summer. Kilmarnock winning the league last year, I think was the first time that I can remember it being sung so fervently. And then again last night, and just on the manager, and go back to what you were saying, Hamish, about the journey and how quickly it feels like things have come together. It is qualified with, you're right, really difficult games ahead. Slovan Bratislava, perhaps not the strongest opponent in the Champions League, although I do agree, better than anything that we've played domestically this year. I don't think that's unfair. And that includes Rangers, in terms of the Rangers we've seen so far this season. One thing about that journey in this time, and it's probably to do with Brendan Rodgers coming back in, but if you look back at any footage, and obviously it kind of becomes overlaps with part of our job on this side of the fence. If you look back at any interviews with Ange Postecoglou, even in that second season, in the latter half of the second season, he still speaks about the players buying into what he's doing, or the players talking about we're buying into what the manager's doing. And then right before the manager leaves, so it's almost like that process was ongoing right up until the manager departs for Tottenham Hotspur. Whereas with this team, and it might be because Brendan Rodgers has been here before, but it feels like they're already bought in, and you're hearing those kind of buzzwords and phrases and cliches a lot less, which is interesting. I don't know if it means that the team are already more unified than they were under Ange Postecoglou. Perhaps it's an unfair comparison. But it just, one of the words that the manager used post-match, just again kind of tapping into what you were saying about the effort that was going into Celtic's press and counter press, was greed. He said the players were greedy last night, and normally that's it's a term which has negative connotations, but in the context of last night, it was apt, and it was great to see, and that's also underlined by the fact, or accentuated by the fact, that Celtic could have scored more. And to talk about giving a team a doing, we've been speaking about this on this podcast, speaking off camera, on camera. I do agree, Ryan. I think that there is something like that coming domestically, but last night was probably it as well. To go out to have that,
could
give
have
a team
been
a doing,
10.
Yeah, in the Champions League, what a time to be doing it as well. And yeah, who knows what the future holds? Who knows what Dortmund, what Leipzig, what Atalanta, even all the way through Aston Villa, if Celtic are still trying to get something out of those games, if Aston Villa are still trying to get something out of those games, that remains to be seen. But in this moment, it's, right from pre-season, right through the domestic start, right through the derby, right through till now, it's been a fantastic start with everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. And we now look into this Falkirk game. We said before, that the 8-day run that Celtic had, if they, 3 wins would be brilliant. We expect 3 wins. All of a sudden, Ryan's 10-goal prediction's looking a lot better now, which I did doubt before last night. So there you go.
Talked about it last night. They only need 3 against Falkirk.
And all
I won't get 3 against Falkirk. No chance.
Yeah, it's the manager deserves the credit as well. He deserves his song to be sung. And who'd have thought, this time 12 months ago, or 13 months ago, 14 months ago that we'd be in this position now. But Celtic are, and yeah, it's a good one to be in.
Pete, can we all agree that Ida's finish last night was sublime? I was delighted for Ida. It was one of those that the two of them, Forrest and Ida, made that look so easy, but it was just class against tiring legs. Frank, listening to post-match interviews, it's not only us fans feeling confident, but the team in the back room feel it just as much. I think last night's going to be huge in terms of the team feeling that they belong at this level, and I think that's going to be, as I say, huge going forward. I mean, we're going to be going to Dortmund. Hell of a game, by the way. We're going to be going there second in the table. Now, I know it's one game in, and I know we've played Slovan Bratislava, but that's got to give the players confidence. Second in the table, going to Dortmund. You know, we've just battered a team 5-1. I know Dortmund are a much better team. But as I say, I think Celtic will go and we'll play our stuff in that game. And I don't think as fans we should be going into that game fearing anything. I think it'll be a proper game, that one. Hercules was like watching RB Leipzig, proper European side. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. Pace and power. That's what Brendan Rodgers says you need at this level. The team has it, especially the pace. The pace is just unbelievable in that team at the moment. When you look at, the front three, they're just electric. And you could argue maybe the three of them didn't have the most amazing night last night. Kuhn was a little bit quieter. Obviously, Maida and Kyogo scored, but, Kyogo missed a few chances, Maida missed a few chances, but the three of them are just great players at Champions League level, right?
It's the transition between defence to attack that's so quick, and we've seen that in pre-season against Manchester City and Chelsea. They're so quick. It's only a couple of seconds. It's blinking, you'll miss it, but they're automatically missing a man sometimes in the middle, going from defence to attack, or they're getting the ball to the midfield really quickly and then giving it to a winger. A winger's one-on-one with his opposite fullback, and all of a sudden they've got a favourable position. Those fullbacks last night for Slovan Bratislava did not want to defend against Dyson Maeda and Nicholas Kuhn. I was actually reading as Joe was speaking there about what the Bratislava players were saying after the game. You'd think they'd actually been through something, they'd experienced something horrible. They said they were happy with 5 goals. They conceded 5 goals.
I wanted to bring that up. Their manager said it's not going to ruin my sleep. I was even watching when they played the anthem before the game. One of their players just was smiling the whole way through as if he was just kind of like, I was like, do you realise what you're going in for here? And I don't really get why they're so happy to be getting hammered 5-1, but I guess that's their issue.
Yeah, I think they got off lightly last night is what I would say, especially in the first half. Second half, they were much more clinical, and the scoreline was more akin to the way that the game went. It wasn't just a domination in terms of the eye test, and the statistics, it will be the same as well. Celtic had 60% possession in the Champions League, which is absolutely unheard of. For me, and this is just a side point, but I think it's something that's got to be touched upon. I think the board have got to be making a move to Brendan Rodgers to get him on an extended deal already. He's only been at the club a year since he returned. He's got 3 years on his deal, 2 years left of that 3-year deal. I know that the contracts are worth the paper that they're signed on or that they're printed on, but I think there has to be an extension, because what is happening at Celtic at the moment is something special. You can see it at the start of this season. He's been backed sufficiently in the transfer window, and the results are there for all to see, both domestically and now on the European stage. They've got to sign him up for the long term. This is only going to get better. It's not going to downgrade as time goes on, like maybe it did the first time around. I think the standards are being set by Brendan Rodgers, and he wants to further improve this team, not just domestically, but on the European front as well. And you're beginning to see that when they play in Europe. So his contract ends not next summer, but the summer after. I want Celtic to be giving him a bumper deal, a real sort of statement deal to say, this is how much we value what you're bringing to the club right now as a manager. He is the boss. He is the mastermind behind the way that Celtic are playing at the moment. And I just think already he deserves to be backed in that way financially by means of extended terms. I think what is happening at the moment, it has the real potential. And it's amazing to say this from where Celtic were. Even in January and February of this year, but you're starting to see things that this could be a very special time to be watching Celtic. I think it already is, but I think it could be even better. And I just hope that Brendan Rodgers is here for the long haul, because I just think you're almost guaranteed success when he's in charge. He's a winner and he gets what it means to manage Celtic.
So exciting. Roberts put a dampener on it. Reality is they were not up to much football-wise. Listen, that may be right at Champions League level. The point I would make again that I made at the start was, how often have you seen Celtic struggle in those kind of games and not put away teams like that? The thing I loved about it, Joe, it wasn't, I don't know if you felt the same, but at half-time, 1-0 up, I really wanted to batter Bratislava. I really thought they were there for the taking. I didn't just want to win by a goal. I know that would still have been fine, would have won the game, but I really wanted to not even like make a statement or that, because I doubt Real Madrid and Bayern Munich cared that much about what we were doing. But I just wanted to, I knew we were much better than them. I wanted the team to go and not just settle for beating them by 1 goal. Treat them like a domestic team, because we're that good, and they did it. So that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think just looking back to some of the games that Brendan Rodgers has been in charge of, the games you mentioned where it's not really went our way, even Valencia in the Europa League, the one over at the Mestalla where Jeremy Toljan gets sent off and we ended up getting beaten 2-0. I still think the football then was really good up until that point, and the manager, who was a few days away from departing the club, little did we know at the time, but he spoke about the moments in games that changed them. Go back to EAK Athens in the qualifiers in the last season where Brendan Rodgers was here, and he said something similar. At 1-0 last night at half time, you're already starting to, it was going well, but it is only 1 goal. It's the Champions League. Bratislava haven't been brilliant, but how many times have we seen this picture where Celtic rue the missed chances and don't, grab the game by the scruff of the neck and really prove themselves? And I was starting to not worry at that point. Obviously, I still had a full half of football ahead, but for me, it could have went either way at that point, just because of what history has taught us. So to come back out in that second half, to re-announce yourself, to get the game under control and to up a few gears. And I was pleased that Maeda gets himself redeemed for misses, that the Kyogo is the same, that Ida redeems. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong at the weekend, but to have that goal that gets chopped off, and it was just a shame that he didn't get himself off the mark, but then to do it in such classy fashion, as the comments have already said, it was the perfect response to a half of football that Celtic dominated, but did have those imperfections as well. So, yeah, in terms of the manager, he probably does deserve an extension. I love what's happening just now. It's been a brilliant start to the season. There is that at the back of my mind. I don't mean to be negative in the face of such a positive, that Brendan Rodgers probably still has something to prove deeper into his career at Celtic, just because it was, the invincible season, the double treble, and that last season it was starting to get a little bit less inspiring. However, if he's backed in the transfer window, like you said at the top of the programme, Hamish, when you bring in a player that's worth a bit of money, who would have thought that they can come on and dazzle at the highest level? So you'd like to think that, going back to everything about Brendan Rodgers coming back into the club, a little bit of adversity last year in terms of maybe not being quite as successful in that transitionary period as we would have hoped, still finish 8 points clear at the end of the season, still end up with traditional league and cup double, and then start the season phenomenally. So, I'd like to hope that the assurances have been made at board level that there's going to be continuation of spending in the transfer windows and stuff like that. And at this moment in time, it's a really exciting time to be a fan and to soak it up in those moments where, haven't always delivered the Champions League no matter the opposition, to be coming off 5-1. And now that game's parked. Now we can look forward to some of the big hitters.
Yes, get excited, everyone. Henrik McLarsson, pressing was unbelievable. Those guys must have been on the Red Bull. Charlie, good morning. That's what investment does, and I hope the board can see that. And Sam, everything came together last night. Regardless of the opponent, we played our game, and I'm over the moon for the team. Fabulous stuff, guys, and we move forward now to Falkirk this weekend, which is maybe a wee bit of a come down after the joys of Champions League football, but
I think it's a big game. I mean, obviously, it's a big game every game that Celtic play, but it's a big game for those players that aren't in the first team at the moment, that are sitting on the bench. All of a sudden, there is real pressure on those players to perform and try and get into the starting 11, because 8 or 9 of those positions are already spoken for. They're pretty much certainties. So there will be a bit of rotation for this Falkirk game. Unfortunately, Luke McCowan, I think, is cup tied, so he can't play in that game against Falkirk. But it's a great opportunity for the likes of Ida Baye to make his debut. Good to see Austin Trusty make his debut last night. I'd expect him to start at the weekend. Tony Ralston, Paulo Bernardo potentially loading Thiago home. James Forrest as well. Yeah. There's options now. These players now have an opportunity, and there's pressure on them. So that should force them to really make an impact in that game, because it will still be a good crowd. I think a lot of people will be buying tickets off the back of last night as well. There'll be a real excitement. There's a bit of a box office draw with Celtic at the moment in terms of the way that they're playing, even if they change up the team ever so slightly. So yeah, there's plenty to be excited about. I'm looking forward to sampling that game on Sunday and maybe seeing some of the players that haven't been starting games hopefully grasp their opportunity when it comes to them. I'm hoping that we can talk about players really challenging for spots after Sunday and being like, right, you can't drop this guy for the next game because he's had such a breakout. But they've got guys on the bench like Engels, McGregor potentially, he'll probably play, to be honest with you. But you've got other guys that can come on like Hatate as well and Kyogo. There's strength and depth now, and you're hoping that those players that do get that opportunity take it and really give the manager a bit of a conundrum to solve.
I think we'll see a few fresh players playing on Sunday. I don't think he'll make like 9-10 changes, because I think he'll want to keep some sort of consistency, but it's going to be interesting. Just a wee bit of news that may or may not be relevant. Just come in that Dinamo Zagreb, who we play match day 6.
Sounds like it could be right. Should know this off the top of my head, but
I think it's 6. They've sacked their head coach, Sergei Yakirovich.
We play them in December, so it'll be one of the later games.
Yeah, not entirely relevant to us. Obviously, we're a good bit away from that, but they get thumped. They're sitting bottom of the table. Not like us, eh? Not like us. We wouldn't be finding ourselves in that part of the table. Right, let's head, guys. Thanks again. It's easy on days like today to talk about Celtic being brilliant. Thanks everyone for tuning in live or afterwards. Enjoy the feeling of Celtic being really good, because there's certainly more to come. Chat to you tomorrow.